Hello, my name is Robin Shaw, and I'm the animator of Raymond Briggs' The Snowman and The Snowdog, which was a sequel to The Snowman, made 30 years after the first film was made. It's been tremendously exciting to work alongside the Royal Mint this year, creating a new snowman coin for Christmas. The design that I've drawn for the coin is a beautiful special moment from the film and the book where James and the snowman hug and say goodbye after this wonderful magical night that they've had. It's a really special, intimate moment that works so nicely on this little coin. And it's also turned out to be quite a nice image for this year as well, with everything that's been going on with the pandemic. An image that's full of warmth and capturing a special moment. I first became involved with the Snowman when we made the film The Snowman and The Snowdog, which was a sequel made 30 years after the first film. Both films now are shown on television every Christmas. It's quite a ritual for some people, including me. The first time I watched The Snowman, it was the first time I'd seen animation that was about something that I could recognise as, as just a boy growing up in England. I could see England represented in the animation, and it was also done with coloured pencils in a very simple, handmade style that enabled me to see how it was done. And that was very important to me as a kid, because it was something that I could then go and try and do myself. And I also pored over the book in the school library, really looking closely at how Raymond had done his drawings, and wondering, oh, can I do that? Can I do that sort of thing? And I'm here today to take you through some little tips if you want to draw the snowman at home as well. So I'm going to show you some little thises and that's that you can do, so you can capture exactly what he should look like. So I should probably tell you something about the stuff that I use. You can use whatever you want. When I was a kid, I just drew with whatever I had lying around or whatever I'd been given for birthday or Christmas presents. As long as you've got a simple pencil, you'll be fine. And a rubber, of course. The other thing I always like to use when I'm drawing, again, it's partly from habit, is animation paper. Now, the Snowman film was all done on paper like this. So it has holes across the bottom. They're called peg holes. And the paper sits on these pegs here, and it means that your first drawing, so if you're just doing a turning head, you can see exactly what the animation is going to be like, and then when the drawings are filmed, they're put on the same peg bar so that they're in just the right place when the animation is filmed. So the first thing to do is the snowman's head. Now, a lot of people think it's just a perfect circle, but it isn't. It doesn't have to be. It has more character already if it isn't a circle. So you don't need to worry about being too neat, because it shouldn't be a perfectly neat circle. The trick is not to have his head sitting on top of his body like that, but actually to have his shoulders quite high. It makes him much more friendly, and he's actually quite a shy figure. He's very polite and quite shy. When he's outside, he's all right, and he takes James and they fly off. He takes charge. But when he goes into James's house, he's very polite. He takes his hat off and walks around all shyly looking at things like that. So his shoulders are quite high. Get his arms in after drawing on these high shoulders, and then his body sitting in front of that nice big fat friendly snowy body. And then when you come down to his feet in the snow, they've got to look like separate feet that can walk off, but they also need to look like they're part of the snow on the ground. And you have to be a little bit careful when you're drawing them, because sometimes they can end up looking like elephants' feet.
And you can see I draw quite rough. I've always drawn quite rough. My dad told me when I was small that I should draw really neatly, but you really don't have to. It doesn't matter how many lines you put down, so long as the ones you end up with look good. Then the next thing to do is his hat, and his hat sits lightly on top of his head. It's got quite a wide brim that comes down over his eyes, but isn't very high. It's supposed to be old and a bit floppy, so she doesn't need to be drawn very neatly, and it just, I always do the top part of it just coming down to rest on his head like that, and then the brim just sort of do a bit of a loose, wobbly, bit of a lazy line around where it all puckers up. Sort of floppy brim. Really shouldn't be too neat. It should be quite rough. Stay rough for as long as possible. And just build up lines. It's called cross-hatching. And it's where you do a set of lines from one angle and then the same again from another. And it just gives you shade in quite a nice way. And then obviously the underside of the hat, the underside of the brim, a bit darker. So when you've got his hat, you can pop in his features, and his features very simply just eyes, big tangerine nose, and a very specific kind of smile, a kind smile. I often say to people, he's more difficult than you think to draw because there's less of him to draw. If you've just got two little dots for eyes, then those two little dots need to be in just the right place, and I haven't put those in just the right place. But it's all right, you've got a rubber, you can always rub it out. And then I put in the nose. Now his nose is one of those satsumas or tangerines or clementines that you have at Christmas, and it's the last one in the fruit bowl. It might be a slightly darker colour than the other ones, so that goes in his face like that. And the important thing is where the eyes sit in relation to the nose. Now sometimes they go slightly above, and sometimes they can be on the same level as his nose. It all depends on the expression he's making. But if he's just going to be giving us a nice straightforward smile as he is here, then we'll have them slightly above. And then, this is the bit I find scary actually, is putting his smile on, because it can all go wrong. But it doesn't matter, you can start again, or rub it out. It's a big, warm smile. It's the sort of smile you should get off your favourite aunt or uncle or grandparent. The sort of smile that always makes you feel loved and happy. Still not quite right. Okay, now he's got, I might slightly change the shape of his head, because he has quite a lot of chin underneath his smile. And once you're happy with that, you can quickly sketch in his scarf. Now you really shouldn't spend very much time on his scarf. I mean, when Raymond draws it, he just puts a few scraggly lines in so that it looks like a really worn out, threadbare scarf. And then, just below that, below the bottom of the scarf, you have lumps of coal. Now, people used to have their fires in their house burning coal, so there'd often be coal sitting around outside in the garden. And you just put 3 of those evenly spaced, and then you have the basics of a snowman, but then you can always fiddle around with it. I need to fiddle around with this a little bit. But for me, the real magic happens when you make it nighttime around him. And for that, I just use a pencil, just shading on its side like that. This will work really well with just normal pencils as well, just a normal HB pencil. Now this looks really rough when I'm doing it like this, but it's because what I'm going to do in a minute is going to make it look much, 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 much better. You just get a piece of tissue, it can be a kitchen roll, loo roll or anything. Just wrap it around your finger like that, and then just smudge it. It's much better than using your finger because, believe it or not, your fingertips are quite greasy and they leave marks on the paper. And also, when you do this kind of rubbing on paper, it burns the tips of your fingers from the friction. So just do it this way. So if you just use the rubber on the end of your pencil or something, you can just softly rub back into the night. If you look at Raymond Briggs's original drawings, they're incredibly soft. But it just gives them a little bit of a special magic glow in the night. And then, what I like to do is to really get the atmosphere going by adding in the snow. I don't draw the snow with outlines or anything like that. What I do is I use this. This is an electric eraser, which you can pick up from any art shop for not very much. But if you don't have one, you can just use the rubber tip of your pencil, which after you've done quite a bit of rubbing out with it, will end up having a little tip on it like that. But anyway, let's show you how to do the snow. So just rub out little snowflakes. Falling from the sky, big ones and small ones, depending on how close they are to us. But this works just as well in some instances, and actually I use it in any way just to soften off the snow that I've already done. And then I start adding some shade. Again, doesn't need to be the same sort of thing with the cross hatching. And very, very softly, so give us some shade under the brim of his hat. And shade under his chin, around his neck. Just enough to describe the shape, not too heavy, and then some shade just on his arms to show that his tummy is in front of the arms. I think one of the things that stops kids from carrying on drawing is when they feel that sometimes, I don't know, they feel a pressure to draw things a certain way, what's supposed to be the correct way. There is no correct way. There's just ways that work and ways that don't. And those ways are many and varied. There we have the snowman. Now, just so you can see how the colouring is done on a full image, like for the coin, the 50p coin. So when I normally do him, the snowman involves 20 different colour pencils. So I haven't quite got all of his colours here. I mean, for his hat alone, I tend to use at least 4 different types of olivey green. So what I do is I always start with the hat. Again, you still don't want to be too neat about it. So it doesn't matter if you get straight lines going all over the place, it's fine. There's bits underneath the brim of the hat that need to be need to keep those dark. But just do the same thing that I was talking about before with the cross-hatched lines. And you just got to make sure you end up with just enough shape and detail for us to know it's there. Doesn't need to be perfect, neat. In fact, it shouldn't be. Then I'm going to put some shade on him. He's a very pale blue to start with. You might think he's white because he's made of snow, but actually the white isn't fully white. There are other colours in there. You very rarely get things being pure white. What white does is it reflects other colours. So in this case I'm just putting loads of blue because it's cold. So keep that lovely and soft, and then I go in with just a slightly darker blue so you can get the shadows a wee bit darker. Again, still not supposed to be very neat. If you actually look at the cover of the book of the Snowman, it's quite a rough drawing, but it's all about his character coming through his nose and eyes and his hat. And a little bit of turquoise. Now turquoise is one of my favourite sort of magic colours because it's sort of halfway between colours. It's halfway between blue and green, and so it just brings in a new element. And then because we've got lots of cold colours on there, and because I'm going to be adding some warmth into his face with the nose and so on, I'm actually going to put some mauve into his shadows, because the mauve is like blue but turned just a little bit warm, and he is a warm character and he's got some warm colours on his face. Just the faintest trace, because it stops the image from being it stops him from being too cold. It just gives him enough warmth. But it also works with the colour of his nose, which I'll put on in a minute. It's just some white to slightly tidy up his face a little bit and blend in the other colours. Okay, and then what I think I'm going to do is my favourite bit, which is do his nose, which I've brought these colours along to do that. Nice. And you just follow the shape of the nose, but then do more colour at the bottom. And do it in little ovals like that, and that way you'll keep your lines working with the drawing. And then you can colour the little shiny bit in with a nice bright yellow, and then maybe just add a little bit of extra oomph with another orange, and then some shade with a nice reddish brown. So when we've got his nose on, I might think about actually adding a little bit of pink into the white of the snow, which might sound weird, but it's what I was saying about the white soaking up all the colours around it. So that bright nose there will make other things soak up its colour. Then eyes, just very simply in black, coal. I don't like using black because black's difficult. Black's a very sort of, it's a bit like white. It's very hard to find pure black, but when it comes to the snowman, you're allowed for his eyes and his buttons. And then, now this is a little magic trick
which you use a very pale yellow or cream, just down one side, and it's like a sort of, as if there's a light shining on it, just giving it some sort of warmth. And a little bit of extra magic, just lightly, not too much of it, down one side. Gives just a little bit of extra glowy magic, as if there's a light shining on him from far away. And then the last thing I do as sort of happy ritual is just take a normal pencil and draw in his mouth neatly. Just with a normal pencil. And there he is. So once you've had a go at drawing the snowman like that, just standing as a snowman and trying to get his character to show through, you can try doing him in different poses, flying or dancing, like in some of these drawings that I've done here, where he's dancing with James. Or like the coin, you could try and see what he looks like when he's hugging, which is quite a nice image, just like on the coin. I've really enjoyed showing you. I care quite a lot about the snowman, as I think you can probably tell. So do send your drawings in to this hashtag. We're all really excited about seeing them.